Manchester United have beat City at Wembley on penalties. A line that should have us overjoyed, but it was Coventry City, and we were winning 3-0, and we managed somehow to get lower than we have been all season. Never have I known a semi-final win in the FA Cup for Manchester United left me feeling so deflated. I thought that was embarrassing, pathetic, and I'm running out of superlatives to describe how woeful this Manchester United team is. Anyway, Callum's here to give us some positivities.
Yeah, hello, welcome everyone. That was a great line. I feel like you've been practicing that for the last 10 minutes since we finished, but yeah, wow. Honestly, usually you celebrate semi-final wins and stuff like that, but I couldn't even find myself wanting to celebrate the penalties going in. I mean, the first one didn't even go in, did it? But just shocking. Like an hour in, we were 3-0 up, cruising, ready to go. Players should be rested. Bring on a couple of the kids, get them a good experience. Just shocking. Shocking all round, embarrassing.
Right, make sure you're getting involved in the chat. A lot of people already are, and we'll get you to your comments very, very soon. A lot of people are asking for the manager's head on a plate and for Sir Jim to sack him, which is, again, is such a weird thing to be winning a FA Cup semi-final. He just said, unless everything had gone beforehand, we shouldn't be at this point, but I couldn't sort of understand the logic. Let's break it down. Where was the mistakes?
Do you know what? I just think it was, I don't know if it was lack of respect or they just kind of took the foot off the gas. I think it was a mix of things. I think the manager's substitutions were probably wrong. I think the players just probably took the foot off the gas thinking that it was a bit easier now. Bad marking from Dalot and Casemiro. Dalot was obviously pointing to Casemiro to pick up Sims, didn't. Horrendous deflection from, I think it was Wan-Bissaka, flying into the goal, and then a penalty from a VAR decision that, funnily enough, wasn't picked up yesterday. So it was just everything that could have gone wrong did, and ultimately it ended up leaving us half an hour of extra time and penalties. Let's focus on one positive. Look, we're in the final. We're playing Man City in the final. Another Manchester derby. That is probably half a positive. Another final. You know, Ten Hag's 2 years, League Cup, third place, and 2 FA Cup finals. Hopefully, one more trophy to add. But I think that's kind of where the positives stop. That today was. It really was appalling to go from 3-0 up against a team that can't even get into the playoffs this season, or very slim chances of getting into the playoffs in the Championship. Yeah. And we've just let them back in. And may I add, a toenail away from losing. VAR's offside call at the end there, which if it was another VAR referee on VAR, you could potentially have said that they drew the lines ever so slightly different, and Coventry could be in the final right now. Wasn't good enough. Really poor from manager and players. And I think I've watched so many of your podcasts with Jay, good friend of ours. I've always been back the manager. I really can't after that.
There's no evidence for it. I mean, on paper you can say, okay, we've got to another FA Cup final, but if you look at the performances,
the performances are the problem, though, aren't they? And the thing is, you can look at the results, and you know, it's like you could probably compare it in a way to Mourinho. Obviously, Mourinho won trophies, and the performances were amazing, but it was kind of his style of football. But it won us trophies. It got us second in the league. At this point, the consistent basis of all these shots being conceded, performances not being good enough, you know, 7th now in the league, potentially going into 8th if Chelsea win their game in hand. It's just all sort of eyes point towards the negatives, and it's horrible to be so negative, but at this point in time, you can't be anything but, and it's really tough. It was really tough, and I think ultimately United have just got to get through the rest of this season, see how we do in the FA Cup final. And I think the writing's on the wall. I think Ineos have personally already made their mind up regarding the manager. I don't think there's any, you know, there's been many managers over the last 10 years that have tried and failed. An FA Cup, 2 FA Cup finals, a 3rd place finish in a League Cup is no mean feat. I think Ten Hag could be proud of that, but I think after that it was I can't defend that anymore. Yeah,
a lot of people are asking for the managers to be sacked. We'll get some of your quotes. So we've had Abhinav Verma, who's been a member for 36 months. Regardless of who came on, United should have held on for 20 minutes. Not really sure how his substitutions screw this. The players are pathetic. Akash Paul, scared shitless to watch the final. A lot of people are saying genuinely sack Ten Hag and get Jose in for the final against City. We've made an interesting. We made reference there to the previous managers. If you look at the likes of Jose and Van Gaal, who were successful and did bring silverware in, we've Ten Hag's got records for the wrong reasons in terms of like where we are, like the performances, our league position, how many times we've been beat at home and stuff like that. The evidence is more to get rid of him than it sort of stacks up for the reasons why to keep him, and that's where I've stood all along in terms of Ten Hag.
That's always been your argument, though, hasn't it? And to be fair, it's a fair argument. You can understand why you and so many others make it, but I've always just been in the boat. Like, we've had so many managers over the years, maybe with a proper structure above him, give him that year. I'd literally said on the lead up to the game before the watch long started, you know, I think actually Ineos will give him the year potentially, if there wasn't someone better out there, if they hadn't already made the decision. I was very much in the boat, keep Ten Hag in if you want to hashtag it, but Ten Hag in, and then see how he does under a proper structure with a proper footballing sort of area around him. But I think when you get into semi-finals, we're going 3-0 up, like, and you have to go through on penalties, like, the players said it all at the end. Usually when you win a penalty shootout, you all charge to the penalty winning scorer.
Yep.
And they all stayed on the centre circle because they knew it was an embarrassment. And I hate to be that negative person, and I hate to be that. And it borderlines when you don't want to hit it as an abusive level, but the criticism of those players has to be at them, and it has to be on the manager as well. The first 60 minutes were good, and at half time you asked us, everyone done okay, blah blah blah.
You couldn't really point a finger. There wasn't
anyone. The only, I was being dead pick, and I said Casemiro probably could have done a little better at one instance, but I can let him off because he's not a centre back.
Yeah.
Other than that, everyone was fine. All the players, they didn't do anything wrong. Rashford did okay. Højlund was okay. Bruno, some chances. You know, just little things. Delo, man of the match, I thought at half time, and even said he'd be player of the season, but that second half, you could tell Coventry came out with a bit more of an house about them, and then
it's the sort of the mental strength that I worry about, as well as the sort of ability with the ball.
It's not the first time it's happened.
No, it's not the first time it's happened. It's like, how many times are you going to capitulate? Okay, there's a couple of times in Europe it's happened. Okay, big stage and stuff like that. There's no excuse, and yes, United won today, and yes, we won a penalty. There is zero excuse to be throwing a 3-0 lead away against Coventry. And yes, there was a freakish of the deflection, you know, the Wan-Bissaka penalty that was avoidable. But then even still, to go to extra time, and like I said, we were a toenail away from going out in the final. And
in the 121st minute.
Yeah, and my heart generally, for the first time ever, I think, felt to the opposition's fans, because you see how they celebrated that. And you had to be sort of...
Yeah. But that's something that VAR has done over the last few years. You know, those last-minute dramas, and it took it away a little bit. But it's just... It was deflating, and we shouldn't be sat here deflated after getting through to the FA Cup final. And it's kind of an indictment on the manager and the players that they kind of have left us feeling like that. We should have been sat here at 90 minutes going, yeah, right through, formality done, review done an hour ago. I'm having our dinner now, but we're not.
Got some... Super chats. Personally, this is from Arcade Machines. Personally, I think Ten Hag has not been good this season, and I am too beginning to turn. However, the body language on these players is wild. They deserve to be sacked first. That's the problem, isn't it? With when it comes to players, and you can blame them. Players will always stay longer than a manager. It's easier to get rid of managers,
exactly.
and managers ultimately carry the book if it doesn't work. That's their job to get the best out of them. Exactly. I think.
I mean, that's kind of the thing, obviously going back to that comment. The body language thing is always quite hard because we're not experts on anything like that, so it's quite hard to sort of pinpoint. But I think naturally you're going to feel a little bit, you know, shoulders down and stuff, especially when things like that happen. But I think in terms of, and I said it at half time, I said it before the game, but I don't ever look at the players and think that they're not putting in full effort. I just think instruction-wise, tactic-wise, it's... You can't be conceding 23 shots a game. You just can't be, and it seems to be a consistent issue. Why? Because the tactics must be wrong and the instructions must be wrong. Where does that come from? The coaching staff and the manager. So that's why you kind of point the finger there. So you can understand, and it's like when a lot of criticism gets levelled at Rashford. If Rashford, say if in the 1990s Rashford would have come into the team then, Rashford wouldn't be... I don't feel like Rashford would have whatever attitude people say he has. He wouldn't have that, and I don't think he'd be allowed to have these performances because the other players would kick it out of him.
Yeah.
So, just using him as an example because I know he's the one that gets the stick a lot. But everything about United is just so wrong at the moment, and I think that is... If it wasn't Ineos coming in now with a new structure and all that, I think Ten Hag would be given longer, but I think because they're there, there's a microscope under him, and I think it might be it might be his nail in the coffin. I think that.
You make a good point there about the sort of body language and Rashford becoming under a lot of criticism, and it's just, you know what I mean, as long as it's done within a way of his performances on the pitch, and not towards him as a person, because he hasn't performed well. But when you look back to when United were in their peak, the players on the pitch had the ability to manage the game themselves.
Exactly.
And there's no ownership or accountability between the players. I don't see players arguing with each other, which is a healthy thing in my mind. When you're trying to win football matches, if you made a mistake, like I've seen it in the past with like Keane or Beckham, when they made a mistake, you shout at each other, you know what I mean, and then build each other. You don't make that mistake.
It keeps your levels up, doesn't it? And it's like you say there, the accountability and the levels to keep a game controlled. They can't manage it now, and that's a worry for me in itself, regardless of manager, because we looked at that today, and yes, it was against Coventry, and no disrespect to them, they are in the league below, but it's happened multiple times this season. And I'm not being funny, but we saw it 3 weeks ago against Chelsea in the last 100 seconds of a match. It's happened. It happened twice in the Champions League against Galatasaray and Copenhagen. It's happened here again today. It's happened against Chelsea. Probably others that I can't think of off the top of my head. I said to you before, but 20 years ago, that would have been unheard of if United would have conceded that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The mental strength to sort of that sort of, you know, okay, we've done this against Copenhagen, we've done this against Galatasaray, let's not make this happen again. And there was a time today when it was 60 minutes and they were passing the ball around, and yes, it was boring to watch, but I thought, this is different here because we've not done this in the past, because we've ended up throwing games away. You make some substitutions and it all goes Pete Tong. Right, I've had some quotes. Roy Keane: I don't like what I see when I watch this Manchester United group. I don't see leaders. They give up chances. They give up goals. We've seen it all season, and they rode their luck today. It carries on. The United players and supporters weren't going over the top because they were lucky to win. They were almost embarrassed in the end. United looked like a championship team. I agree with every sentiment there from Roy Keane. This is Harry Maguire. It sums up our season. We had great control and played well for 60 minutes, but then we conceded out of nothing. Then I don't know. It seems like the world wanted Coventry to go on and do it. See what I mean? This is the sort of mental aptitude. It's like when you have that belief in the back of your head, but you're the one, you know, one of the senior players. You shouldn't have that. You should like, no, we're going to do this. Then I don't know. It seems like the world wanted Coventry to go on and do it. We showed great character to stick with it, and it was important to win the shootout. No shit. Bruno Fernandes on whether winning the FA Cup will make this a successful season. We'll never be successful if we win only the FA Cup. The standard of this club is much higher than what we have been doing. We have to do better in the League Cup and in Europe. We put ourselves in a difficult position and should have killed it earlier, but we didn't. We have to do so much better. They're just recycled quotes week in, week out. Harry Maguire again last night. We started the game really well and then conceded a sloppy goal. We were unfortunate to concede the second goal. I think the penalty was so hard, but all credit to Coventry. They made it tough for us, and in the second half of extra time. Anything there from Maguire or Keane?
I think Keane's obviously going to be naturally very outspoken and probably high United to the highest regard. I don't agree with everything he says all the time, but he's right there. His sentiment's right. In terms of his harshness about the championship team, it probably goes over the top. I don't think we're a championship team. We're just not very good. I think there's a difference, but I can understand his sentiment. Maguire, like you say, he's one of the senior players in the team. I forget senior players. He was captain last season, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why he lost his captaincy, because I think his quotes and his interviews got him into trouble with a lot of fans. I've been really critical of him when he was captain because of his quotes. I think he lacked accountability sometimes, especially as the captain. Bruno's right in what he says. You know, it's never going to be successful if we're just winning the cup. We've done nowhere near good enough this season, and I just feel like I'm in such disbelief at what we've just watched, to be honest. But getting to the FA Cup final is great. It's a great day out. You know, whether you go into Wembley, which I'm sure many people will be doing, you know, going to the pub, going into town to watch it, watching at home with your family, whatever. It's always a good day, especially if you win. But when you know who you're playing and you play like that, it doesn't fill you with confidence. But then we can look at it from the other side now. Coventry got to the penalties. Could we do that against City?
We could be the Coventry in that game.
Which is something frigging amazing to say, really, isn't it?
So you're saying there on camera on Stretford Paddock that you want Manchester United to perform like Coventry. That's what you said, yeah?
Yeah, clip that one up. Clip that up and then everyone can come for
that
me.
Would probably be a better team talk than Ten Hag's. Listen, so we got another super chat there. Gojira. We got too emotional over a wicked deflection and a penalty that we never got this season. Sure, Ten Hag's decisions were questionable at times. You expect him to prevent a wicked deflection and a penalty. How? We've had arcade machines. I have studied body language and psychology, and trust me, it's a language that says no matter what happens, I'll be fine. It's one of entitlement.
I wasn't questioning your ability to do the body language thing. It's just I think it sometimes can be a little bit of a lazy thing when you blame body language. Not saying he is, but I think it's always an easy go-to whenever United don't play well.
Yeah, we've had Jesus Christ with some super chat.
Oh, wow.
I adore Rasha. Christ, a Rashford fan, but pulling a Saka and fake limping off in this match is so sad. Only ones with passion I saw were Bruno, Onana and Hara. That's fair. I'll probably throw Delo into that mix as well, but I thought Onana we should give credit to, because if we're through to the final, I think a lot of it's on him. That save for that volley was sweet.
A very good save. Really good strike.
Yeah, great.
I'll defend Rashford slightly there though, because he did just before that take a bit of a cruncher of a tackle, so it could have been a bit of a contact, that one. But so I will forgive that one. But listen, guys, make sure you're all liking the video as well. We want to get to as many likes.
Yeah,
as
there's nearly 4,000 of you watching.
So there's that many of you watching, so you should be getting at least 1,000 likes for us. So
the shadow, only we could turn our free ticket to the final into a classic. Only we could collapse that way. Hoyland saved us from a true embarrassment.
I'd argue that
Hoyland before they got their equaliser was sort of dithering on the ball in their box, and he just hits it first time.
It's those little moments in it, like the dithering on the ball, and just little moments of not making the right decision that really do hinder you. I think
it's never just one mistake. It's all them mistakes that sort of so that's
exactly. Yeah, I agree.
The Juan of PP. Sir Jim and Ineos should gather everyone, including Ten Hag, and start telling them, you're gone, you're staying. Straight up internal clean-up, because, man, we are dog shit. No positives today, just analysis. I wish it was that easy to get rid of players who are on contracts. It just isn't, and that's why the manager, 9 times out of 10, will lose his job. We are in a final. Let's try and end on some sort of positives. Is there anything that you could see that we could actually do City in the final?
If we get all our players back fit, so I think obviously Mount should be back. I know he's not done much this season for us, but obviously he's just been unlucky with injuries. I imagine Martinez is back. I don't know when Shaw's back at this point, but obviously getting Martinez back would be a huge plus. To be honest, the only positive I can get from that game is we are through to Wembley again. Considering how poor we've been and the criticism that's been targeted at everybody within the club, from manager to players, 2, 3, 4, 5 Wembley trips in a year or two.
Yeah.
A trophy, potentially. There is positives. We're through to a final. A big day out's coming. Obviously, we're not going to be favourites for it, but, that's why you get...
Any game against City, we're not going to be favourites.
Yeah,
the magic of the FA Cup.
Magic of the Cup, exactly. Do you know what? Ultimately, the positive is we're through to the final, and that's kind of as basic and blunt as it can be, to be honest, but... It was deflating, to say the least.
I think we're going to be getting live reaction from Wembley later on this evening, are we, Ethan? Hopefully so, if Jay Mott can find his way out of Wembley and up the M1. But Callum, where can people find you?
Find me on Twitter @_Callum Stone. You can actually watch my podcast on Tuesday night on it's called The United Road. It's on the Weekly Armchair YouTube channel. Casey Evans is joining us, a friend of Paddock, so he's going to be on. But yeah, follow that, follow me, and where can people find you?
Find me. I'll be back with Jay tomorrow night live at 6:15 of our Scotty and Motty channel. Probably talking about this. I don't want to. I'll try and find something else to talk about.
I'm sure there's something else. I don't know. Something happening in the news right now. I'm
sure.
But
I imagine something will happen over the next 24 hours. More interesting than that. But anyway, Manchester United are in the final of the FA Cup for a second season running. Yes, we're playing Manchester City for the second season running. Yes, I'm nervous about the game for the second season running. But who knows? Who knows what could happen? We didn't think that Manchester United were going to capitulate a 3-0 lead against Coventry and then almost lose the game but win it on penalties. So it's football. You never know what's going to happen. But one thing's for sure. I'm going home for my Sunday dinner. That's been Callum. I've been Scotty. See you soon.